Hey folks, I'm sorry this is a long one. I couldn't get my words out. But it's basically a bit of stuff about routing for Woody. I'm going to put some links in bottom. I do mention that. I'll not keep going on now. I will get on with it. One thing I will say is I'm doing some more of these carvings. If I ever get to 1,000 subscribers, I'll give another one away. Although this little fella is going to go up for the Sprout Challenge, what Willie Coleman's in, and Misfit Gardner, and A Little Dirt Never Hurt. So I just thought I'd do that just for fun, because they need to do something. I know Misfit Gardner's got to eat a full plate of sprouts if she loses, so I hope she gets this little man. Nice to be nice. So, Mr. Woody, plunge routers for idiots. It's a bit strong, that. There's only one idiot in this room, and that's probably me. No, we've got brains. These have got no brains. Power tools have got no brains, you know that. You use a chainsaw, you use various other power tools, I know you do. So you know basics, safety equipment, eyes and ears, especially with these chuck chips out like you've never known, and they're very loud. I don't know what sort of plunge router you've got. Have you got one like this, which basically it's a sprung base with a lock on it like that? Or is it one of the other types that you twist? It's like a twisted body, and you can twist it to set the depth. Now, me personally, I prefer the ones that you twist, but I can't get one here. I could if I wanted to spend loads of money and have it imported, but that's not an option. It's not what I want to do. Import tax is too high for a start, and I've never seen one. This is a very cheap one, because I bought this because the other one, this lock had stopped working on the other one. And I didn't even think about it until I thought about building a table. So I built a table with one that with broken lock, which I use 99.9% of the times. I hardly ever use this now. Main things on this, you lock, that locks you. That'll lock you down to whatever depth you want to set it at. That's your collar. There's a stop on this one. It's here, which you twist until it locks in. That holds that, so you can use your spanner to adjust, to take the bit out. When you set a bit in it, you push it down and then pull it out just a little bit, 5-8 millimeters. That's enough. More than that is dangerous, really, because if that comes out at high speed, then could kill you. At worst, could maim you. As also, or anybody else who's in the vicinity. So I mean, that's something you've got to be careful of, and make sure it's really tightened down. I mean, that's for idiots, you know what I mean? When you're using it, if you want to set it up, like setting your depth, there's several ways you can. Two ways I use. Square with the sizes on to whatever depth I want to set it at. Now, wait a minute. There's a stop here, yeah. You've got a stop on it, on this type, and this piece of jiggery pokery that spins round gives you different distances. Now, if you were to set your depth, you'd make sure that pin is on its lowest. That's because it's all right. That's on its lowest increment, yeah. That's loose, so you can move, and then you set to whatever depth you want, but on lowest, on the smallest, because when you press that, then you can set to your height, whatever it is. I don't know, say 15 millimeter. For instance, this is not set to 15 millimeter. Well, it might be. It's not bad by eye. I'll just lock it down at that. So that's set to 15 millimeter, but you don't want to go straight in at that height. What you set it to. What you would then do is release it and turn that until you just get in a small pass, because you're going to do your cuts. Say that's a little bit. That's still a little bit. Well, that's 5 millimeter, say. And you're going to do it in increments and do several passes. Reason being for that is if you were to use the If you were to go straight in at 15mm, it's going to put a lot of strain on your engine. It'll put a lot of strain on your bit, which will obviously lessen life of the machine and your bits. It can also, if you went in at straight in at like your maximum depth, you're going to get tear out, you're going to get all sorts of snags and poop, basically. It's not a good way to do it. So several passes is the best way. These come with a fence, yeah. Now this, I don't know where my fence is, but it's somewhere. I don't know where it is though, so I can't really like demonstrate that. But that's an adjustable fence, which you can, so you could cut dados, say, or grooves, whatever you want. That's a groove bit. I used this last time. I used this, to be honest. I used it to cut the grooves for my quail house, and it wasn't this one I used, but this is a smaller one for the same size. And basically, this is worked out so that this edge and this edge correspond to this edge and this edge, and that gives me that distance cut. That's the cut what I'll get out of that. And then I inlaid it into the posts. It was sunk in, you know, like a lap joint. And that's just an handy little jig. They're easy to knock up, you know. There's probably loads of stuff on the internet I would check out, you know what I mean. I did some searching on YouTube. There's some great videos on how to use. There's some really good stuff. What else? You were saying about clamping. If you're clamping on an edge, like here, this is not a best example. Well, it's an example. Say that were a top what you wanted to route round. You're just going to have to clamp it where you can. You want it secure so it's not moving, obviously. But say I can only clamp it on these edges. And I'll put these two clamps close together, yeah? Because I've got to start somewhere. So I'm going to start here, work my way along, and then move my clamp. Do my next bit. You can stop and start, providing, I should have talked about bits, I suppose. That's an edging bit, that's an edging dado, and that will cut 1 centimetre dado into that edge. Although you could be using a round over bit. Have I got a round over bit here? Yes. A round over bit with a bearing on it, yeah. And that will, and you go into your full depth with that. You set your depth, and you'll take it off at your depth. If you were doing into a plunge where I was going somewhere into the middle to cut a groove out of you, that's when you're going to use your increments. You can go incremental on these if they're really deep, but as you're working on an edge, you can work into it. You can still do 3 passes. You know, you don't have to go and you're straight in there. You can do 2 or 3 passes. You don't have to push it right in. The other thing with these is when you're working from above to below. That's backwards, by the way. That's the correct way. That's away from me, yeah. As you're pushing into these, your blades running clockwise, so you're working into cut. So basically, what happens is you'd work left to right rather than right to left. Yeah, you're working against the blade in respect that your blade's cutting in that way. It's always cutting in that way, and when it's cutting, it's trying to pull itself into work. Yeah, same as if you were to set a fence up. You go in the same direction. If you're doing a fence, you need something pretty sturdy because that machine is pushing into work. So this has got to be like clamped down really well and very stable. This is just a piece of aluminium handle. But that's solid. You know what I mean? It's not very long. I've got a longer one, or you can use a spirit level, providing it's straight, which it should be if it's a spirit level. It should be straight. But you've got to say, look at that. It's not going to bend. Doing a cut like a dado from here, like with this piece here, that's 16mm. So say I wanted to cut a dado into that 16mm, I've got to measure from, well, if you're working at your centres, let's say your centre line, you draw a centre line on, you work from your centre and measure it out to your working edge, your reference edge. It's got to be at right reference edge, so you're working into it, because that's pushing against your fence, yeah. Because if you go wrong way, away from your fence, what'll happen is that your blade will pull out like that. So you've got to be working in right direction, which is, like I say, did I say left to right? Yeah, left to right. You've got to be working in right direction. I would always say do a test cut. If you do go in it wrong direction, it wants to pull it away from you, you know, which can be dangerous. But you've got control. You've got hold of it, yeah. But if you're working along anything like a fence, you've got to go in the right direction, because it's pushing against fence and keeping line straight against your fence. That's why that's got to be really hard held down. Now, I would either recommend, as your first router project, if you're not using a router very much, is to try and make a router table. Now, I made mine. If you've got the type that spins and does adjustment, they work a lot easier with homemade router tables. I'll just show you my router table. This is the one I made. Now, this is totally portable. It doesn't have to be in between here. I can take that anywhere and put it and clamp it to a table, or clamp it to a worktop, or put it in a Black & Decker, you know, one of them thingamajinks, workmates. That would fit in there quite easily. Difference between this and the absolute basic type, what you'd make, is that this I can adjust from above here, which is a godsend, because I can work up in my increments, you know what I mean? But basically, I cut it out like this. This top plate is so big, so I can do that, pull it out, and so it actually accommodates the mechanism I made. I'll show you that. So, basically, I've got a T-nut here, but that's also has to be set up perfectly square. I've got a T-nut here and a threaded bar, and I just tacked a weld with a nut in it so that I can move it up and down. If you used a long bolt, you could do it without doing welding. It would just, I didn't know how long it was going to be, and I had threaded bar. So with direction, I'm saying, if obviously this now is upside down, so it's travelling anti-clockwise, so that's the direction I have to push into this, yeah, depending which side I come from. Fences, simple fence that just clips over the top of there. It is very tight. Oh, sorry, it is very tight, and when I've set it up, I put a clamp on it so I can do some dust extraction here. Although it is very dusty in here, there's a lot less if you're using dust extraction on that, you know what I mean? That's just a simple box, and that sucks up through there. Main things we're using a plunger router like this is when you're using it, you're going along this edge, it's got to be perfectly flat. You've got to keep it perfectly flat, which can be really hard if you're working, trying to put an edge on something like that. Keeping that flat's hard. You've got a tendency to do that, you know. Well, not with wood, but with your actual router. It's quite hard to explain. I mean, if there's something specific that you want to know, like, let me know. I mean, also, here are some router bits I've got. This is just a cheap set. I've used it. Incidentally, that's what I used. That's a centimetre. That cuts back a centimetre. That's what I used to do that rabbit or rebate. Yeah. I cut the hole so that my machine fit how I wanted it, and then did the rebate. Then I made the plate on top. There's several ways you could do that if you wanted to do it. I'll put a link in, but you cut a hole out, make a plate. Now that's 5mm, might be 4mm, but 5mm, say, which could be this MDF here. You make a plate, you set that in there. Only difficult part is with this type of router is if you want to do it, you've got to do your incremental cuts. You can't just do your straight cut at whatever depth. Saying that, with this, if you were using edging, these are just for edging, whereas that'll take a rebate straight out at middle or a full sheet if you want, you know what I mean. If you're doing that with edging, you could go at it 2 or 3 times and set your height and do it, and just, you know, 2 or 3 passes. That you'd have to cut out with a jigsaw, do a rebate round it like I did there, make your next part, take your plate in right orientation, which would be that orientation to set it in, make a plate that's going to fit back in there like that, and you've got yourself a basic router table. Obviously a bigger piece than that would be better, although there are some very small good designs where I've seen some boxes made where you just put your router in and it works on tabletop. If you're just doing edging, then that's great for that. Just, you know, you can even go for small stuff. Well, that's the good thing about that. You can, I could put an edge all the way around that using a push stick, not your fingers too close, whatever ways, you know, you don't want to get your fingers whatever near that. Another way to do a router table would be to say, take this, do your template on there, but that piece complete. Then if you had got, like, I don't know, Wicks or whatever shops you've got that cut wood, get yourself a 5mm piece, put that on top, have some other cut if you haven't got ways to cut it, and you could sort of surround it and make a frame around that, and then that would be a table and that would be a strength. Whatever you've got to do, it's got to be, you know, it's got to be, you don't want it so that it's buckling and bowing, but you could, you know, put that in there, put some bits in there all the way around, and that'll be a table. And that then you can bolt, you can clamp to the side of this, sticking out as far as your router goes, or in your workmate. What else can I say? What I would recommend? Main thing I would say is I'd recommend making a table. So this is jigs work well with routers. So if you're doing something, you just got to work it out from your centre to your working edges. You know, this one is exactly the same on both sides, but I've seen some that aren't. You know, depends on type of router you've got. Bits, yeah, lots of choices. Use that for cutting out like rabbiting slots, but that you could use that and do like tongue and groove, although you cut your 2 grooves and you make the tongue to go in between. Lots of applications with a router. It's a great tool. As I say, I'll try and put some links in bottom to some router tables, very simple stuff. If you make a router table like this as well, and you want a fence on it, then you can screw your fence so that you can, at one end, so that it swings. Yeah, it swings. So that's your fence distance, but that would be from your from your side or your centre to your fence, and that swings, and then you clamp the other end, and you just measure distance what you want. That works really, really well. Very simple. Say a table is where to go if you want to get into routing, but there's other jobs what you can't do. Like I couldn't have done that, cut them posts out without doing a template like that, or a setup like that. I don't know if I still kept big one. I keep the big one. Yes, I did. It's a little bit dusty. That's the big one that I did use for quail cage, and I think I did 4 posts at a time. The 3 or 4 I could do at a time, and basically just routed them out. And like I say, if I can find that other little piece of lat, put that lat. I'm blind, but as you see, that's a bit smaller actually, but there you go. That I could cut all posts exactly where I wanted them all at the same time, and then turn them to do corners. So I mean, making templates or jigs is always a good way to go. But say if there's absolutely anything particular, let me know, and then I can sort of say, well, yeah, so and so, it's easier to do that. If it's just basic stuff, say I'll put a couple of links in underneath, and you can have a look at them and see what you think.